It came!
It finally came! The big one.
Sorry, that is amazing. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Today I ordered, here, let me see if I can set this up for you guys. I ordered a print so I can donate it. I can actually paint on it and then donate it to the auction coming up this Friday. It came a day earlier than I expected, so this is really helpful. I was expecting to have to do a little bit of a time crunch pretty much the night before. But since it's done today, I thought I'd open it up with you guys, see how it looks. Resolution, the quality might not be the best, but wow. I am a fan. I'm a huge fan. Again, quality is not the best, but we're gonna paint on top of it, and that's the main purpose for that. Fun to look at though, because we've got all these little scratch textures and things like that, and by far one of my favorite pieces I've ever painted. I don't know, it means a lot to me. Wow, I love it. Okay, let's pack her back up, and we're gonna take it over to the art studio, and I'm going to paint on it, fix it up, make it all pretty and stuff. Here it is. We have the original and the print of this painting, and I actually feel like the print turned out really cool. The only difference is that you're missing some of that sheen, you're missing some of the same quality in color. So here I am, I'm actually going to be painting on top of this whole entire picture, this whole entire project right here. The whole reason why I made a copy of it, if you guys haven't seen the last few videos, is because I'm going to be donating this version to an auction for a church, and for the purpose of essentially giving the youth a good experience, helping them to, have cool trips and so many other things, right? So I'm really happy that this is going to a good cause, and that my talents can be used for such a godly purpose. So that feels very, very flattering that God would put me in that position to be able to do this. Granted, everything has its challenges. This has been a hard piece to work on. Clearly, I'm going to be painting this twice. And so, I don't know if I'll be able to achieve the same quality that I did here on the next one. I know I can get a lot better. I'm going to put a lot more work into it because I want to make it even better than this. It has to be the perfect original, right? But it's stressful. When you're painting Jesus Christ, you're kind of like, I don't want to mess his face up. I really don't. And so there's a lot of stress that kind of comes into this. And I'm really hoping that I'm not reflecting that into the work of my painting, which at times I feel that way, and I feel like maybe inadequate to be painting this portrait of Jesus Christ. But at the same time, I receive that confirming feeling that God gave me these talents for a reason, right? God gives you talents for a reason. And if you're not using them to serve God, then, or to amplify his voice, his power, then maybe we're using them incorrectly. Obviously, we got to use them for many other things, right? If you want to paint a painting of your dream car, then go for it, right? Or if you want to sing a song about how much you love cookies, nobody's going to stop you, right? And if it makes you happy, that's also why God gave you these talents, right? Silly examples, but anyways, whatever. I don't want to get too distracted. Let me talk a little bit about what I'm doing with this painting. I'm going on top with something called a zinc white. I'm also using the color Azo Gold, as well as another one, alizarin crimson. Later on, I use another color called manganese blue. But this process here, after I've brought in these whites that you kind of see on the beard, I stain them with, some of the colors just to get the base tone, right? In some cases, because this is a little bit further along, I can actually use these tones right now as kind of a final product, right? But obviously I want to add a little bit more dimension to the picture, so that's why I'm going in with thicker whites. I'll probably paint whites on top of the things that I just did. You'll see it with the beard, you'll see it with the cheekbones, you'll see it with everything on this face. And it's kind of frustrating, but this is exactly how you achieve a really powerful image. So what I did with the hair right there is I added something called interference gold. It's from the brand Golden. I only use the brand Golden. It's got a lot of really cool value in their paint. Anyways, here I am. See, I'm kind of adding those whites back onto the beard, but there we go. Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about where I got this picture, right? I've mentioned it many times, so I'm not going to say too much, but I got this from the Shroud of Turin, and I also am using some descriptions from other people like Paul and Pontius Pilate.
If you want to hear more about that, obviously go check out the other videos. And there's like, I think there's 3 others in this development right before this one. And I'm going to have many more as I work on the original print, or on the original version, to make it a little bit more perfected. But I want to talk a little bit about, in particular, actually about other cultures and their visitation from Christ. Because we know that in John, Jesus Christ tells the people, or he tells Peter and his apostles, he tells them, he says, other sheep I have of this fold that I have to go and minister to. And so what does he mean? We actually never hear about him after that. And we're like, okay, well, so does Jesus Christ go off and just continue teaching the word of God? We really don't hear a whole lot more about him. Well, maybe we do. Maybe there's more out there that we just haven't really studied, right? Maybe there's more. Maybe we got to open our minds to the idea that maybe he was in places like the Americas. Now, maybe I got your attention, right? So let me talk a little bit about that. Was Jesus Christ in the Americas? Did he go and visit the Americas after his ministry as, a normal mortal, I guess, normal, quote unquote? After his ministry in the Middle East and kind of that old Jerusalem area, did he end up in other places like the Americas, maybe even in the more Slavic regions, maybe even in other parts of Asia like China or Korea, Did he go and visit those people? Or did he leave them lonely? And I would argue Jesus Christ loves each of us so individually. Why wouldn't he go and visit them? In fact, there is some evidence that maybe he was in some other places. There are many stories about that seem to be very consistent with each other about, say, like a great white God. A great white God. Let me speak clearly a little bit. I'm getting a little excited, so I'm just starting to mumble my words. So forgive me for that. But there's other stories that seem to remain consistent. Or even let's talk about the Aztecs. The Aztecs, when the Spanish came, originally accepted them in because they were promised by the great white God, quote unquote, that he would come again. And so they accepted them because, there's some white people and they're here to maybe help us, to save us. Well, clearly things did not end well. They got smallpox. But you see these magnificent cities that they had. And you hear the writings of the Spanish and how they took so much gold. There's all these temples. And some of those remnants are there in Mexico and with the pyramids and whatnot. But there's also so much more. To think that we've only explored 2% of the ancient Americas. We really don't know a whole lot. That's 2% of the sites that we know of. And we're finding more and more all the time. We're using LiDAR now. There's new technology that's finding all these different cities, highways that could have held millions. And we're kind of confused because we've been kind of lied to. We've been kind of this opinion that maybe nobody was here in the Americas back then. Well, it turns out maybe there's more about Jesus Christ, more to be said, and all these records that are probably gone. To think about the writings and the journals and on plates that the Aztecs had and the Spanish kind of smelted down and turned to precious valuables, right? They were valuable in their own way before, but now they're just kind of for trading. I don't know. It's kind of sad, but we hear about that. And you'll see that there's a lot of tribes that also have stories about this great white God coming and visiting them. Super cool. And talking about a man with a forked beard, right? A white man with a forked beard who had them feel the prints in his hands and in his feet and in his side. I don't know. That sounds an awful lot like Jesus Christ going and ministering to other sheep of his fold, right? I think that's super cool and amazing to think that, no, God does not leave every single one of us. He doesn't just give attention to one part of the world, right? He sends his son and he ministers to all of us. I love this painting. It's taught me a lot about Jesus Christ. It's forced me to really look into his life and his ministry a little bit more, and it's been uplifting. It's really put me in the perspective of, I don't know, just in a whole different perspective. I'll just say that. It's put me in a whole different perspective. And I really do love Jesus Christ, and my relationship with him is growing every single day, especially as I work on this piece and use my talents to glorify him and amplify his word. But here I am. I'm just going to kind of go back into it. I'm painting the sides mostly of this painting right now, just so that it has the same quality your typical painting would. I want it to look the very best I can, especially if I'm representing Jesus Christ here. So here we go, adding some of those darks again, going in back in with some glosses. And here is this portrait of Jesus Christ I've been working on with for so long, or at least the print that'll be donated to this church auction to help the youth. I'm super happy with it. Look at that quality. Look at that.
When I met Lilith, Mary, that day, I told my wife and my students she was beyond human aid. Only God could have healed her. And then I saw her healed. And here you are. The healer. My whole life I have wondered if I would see this day. Follow me, and you'll see more.
And there it is, my portrait of Jesus Christ. I absolutely loved it. I think it turned out super good in my personal opinion. As far as how much it auctioned for, how much it was sold for, I'm not gonna say here, but I did get to meet the person who bought the painting. It was a silent auction, so that's why I didn't really film it. If it was more of a live auction, I probably would have, but it was just a silent auction, so people got to write down their bids and then build up from there. But the person who got it had just moved from Detroit. It's an Iraqi lady, super kind, one of the most loving and humble people I've met in a long time. And just to see her, meet her, and know that this painting was going to a good home felt really, really good. It felt like it went to the right person. And coincidentally, she ran into my mom that morning as she was on her walk. And my mom was like, "Oh, you're actually gonna go to the auction my son's." She said, before all that happened, she said, "You're actually going to the auction that my son is submitting his painting to." So she got to go buy it. Coincidences, I don't really believe in them, but that was what a cool divine orchestration of God, right? To think that the person who's probably the most deserving of it was able to get it. I don't know, everything worked out in such a way that, I don't know, it just felt too good to be true. But it happens, and that's exactly how God works. This next painting, I don't know if I'll be selling it. It's an original copy, but I'll be giving many prints away. I'll be selling many high quality prints of that original painting of Jesus Christ. Maybe I'll paint on a couple, I don't know. But what I've learned from this piece is that I want to continue to use my talents to amplify and glorify God. So I'm going to keep painting stories of Jesus Christ. I'm going to keep painting stories from God, from the stories of the scriptures and stories of these ancient people in the Americas and all over the world who probably received a visitation from the one and only Jesus Christ, the Son of God. And I'm very excited. If you guys want to stick around and watch the journey, please do. My name is Gabe the Painter. I'm an artist, an art coach. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want to see more. Hit that bell icon if you want to be reminded every time I post. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.